Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include when we can hear news about Diablo 4 Season 1, the latest juicy news out of the FTC versus Microsoft court hearing that is spilling all kinds of industry secrets, Blizzcon 23 being bigger and more expensive than ever, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Starting with some Diablo 4 news, we found out that the next dev livestream update will be taking place on Thursday, July 6th at 11 a.m. PDT, and it's going to be all about Diablo 4 Season 1. It's actually also going to be about Diablo Immortal and the new class coming, which they haven't revealed yet. Data mines say it's going to be a Blood Knight, and I believe the reason they're doing a 2-in-1 here, with Immortal and Diablo 4 each having their own sections as part of this live stream, I'm imagining it's because Diablo Immortal has been celebrating its 1-year anniversary and has effectively a season revolving around Diablo 4. So there's some crossover there. In addition to talking about Season 1 of Diablo 4, the devs will also be talking about quality of life updates that'll be coming to the game, and there'll be a live Q&A in which they will answer real questions from real people. Now, if you hear anybody saying, oh, they're going to reveal the new class coming to Diablo 4, there's no new class coming to Diablo 4. The new class is coming to Diablo Immortal. Do not expect a new class to come to the game anytime before the first expansion, which will likely be in 2 years from now. That's when Diablo games have always introduced their new classes. Now, we also had this week the release of a significant new patch for Diablo 4. We covered it in full detail in this video over here. In short, though, some of the most significant things that happened here were the implementation of instant teleportation to nightmare dungeons. Now, when you click on your sigil, it activates a nightmare dungeon, and if you just click straight on that nightmare dungeon on your map, you will instantly teleport to it. They've also buffed the XP that you get from nightmare dungeons very significantly. Estimates are saying there's an 80% buff to how much XP you get. This now makes nightmare dungeons the most effective thing to do to level up, as opposed to those regular dungeons that you run halfway through over and over and over again. 1, because you cut out the travel time, and 2, because you've buffed the XP. There's also a buff in XP to Whispers, so I'm hoping now that Whispers are the definitive way to level 1 to 50, again, as opposed to doing a dungeon halfway through over and over, because you don't have access to nightmare dungeons in the earlier world tiers. They also fixed the inability to open a cache from a world tier 4 world boss before you're level 80. The items in there might still be higher level, but at least you can open the cache now. There were small buffs to all classes, some more significant than others. Overall, a step in the right direction balance-wise, and really overall it just shows that the devs really are listening. Again, the game is less than a month old. We're already getting this pretty significant patch that is actively addressing some significant player feedback. The patch also included some undocumented changes. For instance, the Necromancer's Blighted Corpse explosion, creating that fog cloud that covers everything, including negative monster effects, that has been resolved. You can now see through it if there's a harmful enemy effect. The Necromancer's Corpse tendrils now seem to actually pull enemies more consistently. A couple of legendaries, uniques that weren't properly behaving with certain other items are now working, and Helltide has a new tornado event. Oh, and that Helltide boss, a little bug guy, actually has good drops now. For a full analysis on the patch, again, you can check out my video here. Now, we also learned this week, thanks to an interview with PC Mag, that the devs are planning to add support for MS Direct storage in the future. This means that if you're on Windows and running the game off an SSD, load times are going to become so much faster, 2 seconds or less. Although I believe that's only with NVMe drives. This technology is not prevalent at all. In fact, if it comes to D4, this will be like the second game to support this tech, but it's already been data mined as of months ago that there is the framework for the tech built into the game, i.e. there is intent by the devs to make it happen. Now, last week we spoke about the ultra rare drops that are in Diablo 4. A bit of a follow-up this week in that we've now had a confirmed drop of a Grandfather Sword. This screenshot was taken by a player who's level 76, but the person who got the item was level 100. The Grandfather is one of 6 super rare unique items that for a while the community thought didn't even exist. And if you're wondering what's so great about the Grandfather, pay attention to that crit damage. It is multiplicative. Normally, most crit damage mods are plus X% crit damage. This is up to 100% times crit damage, meaning you can just double your crit damage while all the other modifiers are going to be additive. This really is significant for those who can make use of this item. The other super rares are the Doombringer, the Ring of Starless Skies, Andariel's Visage, the Harlequin Crest, and the Melted Heart of Selig. Diablo 4 lead class designer Adam Jackson had confirmed that these items can only drop from level 85 and above enemies, and they always have 820 item power. Drop rates were allegedly data mined, and people are saying that even dedicated players that are blasting would have to blast for 10 years before they find one of these. Outside of the Grandfather, there have only been 2 confirmed Harlequin Crest drops. Though I do think we should clarify here, not everyone who's going to find one of these items is a streamer or is going to post about it online. So, again, there's confirmed drops. We don't know how many have actually dropped. That said, some people in the community are saying these items are just way too rare. You're more likely to win the lottery than to get one of these items to drop. And I think we got to keep in mind that this is the launch state of the game. We don't know what's coming with Season 1 or future content patches that might give us avenues that are going to make it easier to get rare items. Whether it's going to be a World Tier 5 with even higher drop rates, whether it's going to be some mechanic to deterministically work your way towards some kind of a unique, we really don't know. What I can say is that if these are the drop rates for the next, 2 years, if there's not going to be anything that alters our ability to farm these items, I do believe these are too rare. And I say this as an advocate of the God drop. For years, I have said I hope Diablo 4 has God drops, these super rare items that when you get it, it is mind-blowing. You are so happy, you're so thrilled, and it's such an exciting memory that you're gonna hold on to. And people are saying that the rarity of these items is allegedly, my understanding is significantly rarer than these God drops from Path of Exile. And the other thing here is that in Path of Exile, you can trade items. In a game with no trade, well, in general, drop rates should be higher. In a game with trade, if you can't find an item yourself, you can at least trade for it. I would say that drop rates can be, up to 100 times rarer in a game with trade. I believe the drop rates for the super uniques should be such that an average player should not expect to get one of these within a season. But someone who is really applying themselves, really playing a lot, yeah, within a 3-month period, getting one of these seems reasonable. But I definitely want there to be a tier of gear, a tier of items that remains something that you don't depend on getting. That if you see a build guide, it's not going to be a build guide that is like, oh, get this super rare item and you can make this build happen. These items should just not be common enough to make builds that revolve around them. And that's why I believe that the items selected to be the super rares should be items that aren't build enabling, but items that just most builds would be happy to get. Like the Harlequin Crest is the perfect example. +4 to all skills. It doesn't matter what your build is. You get that to drop, you are equipping that item. Because the worst feeling would be getting one of these God drops and, oh, I can't use it for my build. I also can't trade it to anyone. And the average player who's going to get one of these will be level 100, meaning with the way gear drops work, it's going to require level 100, so you can't even give it to an alt unless you get that alt to level 100, so it would really take the wind out of one of these exciting moments. That said, with the game being under a month old, I think it's totally fine that most people have not seen any of these items, that these items are still mythical. You can always increase drop rates over time. What you can't do without revolts is decrease drop rates. You can't ever put the genie back in the bottle, so roll out with ridiculously rare drop rates. It's fine. Let people complain. Whatever. The game's 3 weeks old. Maybe these drop rates were just intended to be temporary, to wait to see, are players going to find some crazy exploit that lets them farm these items, and then the market, or I mean the player base, is just full of these items, and now you can't flush them out of the system until you invent some kind of SOJ sync. By the way, SOJ, Sona Jordan, obviously going to come in the future as an item. Question is it going to be one of those super rares? Alright, that wraps up the Diablo news, but diving now right into the juicy FTC versus Microsoft on the acquisition of Activision Blizzard news. So they've been at court now this week for several days, and finally, after half a year of this nonsense, we are getting so many juicy reveals. Sony and Microsoft are flinging mud at each other. The judge in this case has no chill. She does not care for Sony and the FTC's shenanigans. Microsoft and Sony are showing documents that they're poorly redacting. People are looking at the documents and they're piecing together what has actually been redacted. But before we dive in, just a quick recap here. So the FTC has taken Microsoft to court. This acquisition deal needs to go through by July 18th. Otherwise, the deal is dead unless an extension can be secured. The FTC in December sued to stop this deal from going through, and since then they've just been using stall tactics to delay the court proceedings, until I think they were aiming for August, knowing that the deal would just expire by that point. But then recently they got scared, heard some word that Microsoft was going to push the deal through regardless, so they took Microsoft to court. It's exactly what Microsoft wanted, to go to court to get this over and done with. And now, after this week of court proceedings, things are over and done with, and we're just waiting for a ruling, which could come as early as mid-next week. So the whole purpose of the court proceedings was for the FTC, who again, they're the claimant here, they had to prove why this acquisition should not go through. It was on them to prove why this would be bad for consumers, why this would hurt competition. Their biggest ally that they brought along with them was Sony, who's also been the strongest opponent to this deal since day one. And then on the other side of things, you had Microsoft, and they brought Activision to help them out. And there were also some neutral third parties that also gave testimony. As a big scale overview, the FTC did a terrible job of conveying why this acquisition is bad, which is basically what happened when this judge oversaw the previous case of the gamers against this acquisition. The judge said, look, you, the gamers, have failed to provide substantial evidence to suggest that this is going to hurt competition. And preliminary results, at least based on how the judge was acting during the hearings, are that she didn't seem much more convinced with the FTC's arguments. So let's go over some of the details of things that were discussed and revealed throughout this court case. So the one government that has actively blocked the deal is the UK, and they did it on account of cloud gaming. The topic of cloud gaming thus came up during this court hearing, and apparently Jim Ryan, the CEO of Sony, doesn't believe that cloud gaming will become a significant part of the games industry for at least a few more years, possibly for another decade. He also said he doesn't believe that Microsoft's decision to make Starfield exclusive to Xbox is anti-competitive, which, good for him. It would be quite hypocritical of him to say it was anti-competitive, given Sony is all about those exclusivity deals. But his big argument revolves around Call of Duty and Microsoft not continuing to make Call of Duty available on PlayStation, or at least the best version of Call of Duty available on PlayStation. That was really the angle that Sony was pushing here. Here's where things get a little funny. He also went on to suggest that if Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, Activision being the creator of Call of Duty, Sony isn't going to give Activision information and access to the next generation of PlayStation consoles. This is something that typically happens in game development, where in order to ensure maximum compatibility and best performance, you will give these AAA companies access to dev versions of the next console. And so, well, now if Microsoft, your main competitor that makes Xbox, if you're going to give them your company secrets of your next game system, that's a bad idea, right? Well, that makes sense, but then you're concerned that Activision will make a subpar version of Call of Duty, and then you are not giving them access to what they need to ensure they make a good version of Call of Duty for your system. This is literally what happened with Minecraft Legends, I believe it was. Because Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, PlayStation refused to give the access, so the version of Minecraft Legends on PlayStation just wasn't up to par. It possibly didn't even release on PS5. Now, here's the thing as well. Sony owns a ton of studios. They make first-party titles. Microsoft gives them the Xbox dev kits. So why isn't the reverse a problem? Why is it okay for Sony to get access to Microsoft's Xbox dev kits, but not the other way around? Then an internal email was leaked in which Jim Ryan allegedly said that everything will be fine, they're going to be okay even if this deal goes through. More than okay were the exact words. This is very contrary to his whole public case of, oh, we're going to die if Microsoft gets Call of Duty. However, can we compete with Microsoft? And then the FTC's main argument throughout all of this has been about exclusivity of games. And it literally happened throughout the court case that when the FTC is talking about, you know, they might make a title exclusive to their platform, the judge is like, you mean the way Sony does? And that was Microsoft's argument that, hey, you know, that's just the business. That's part of the competition. Part of the competition is getting these exclusives. It was also revealed that Microsoft had looked into acquiring tons of studios over the past few years, including Zynga, including Sega, some really big names. And a lot of the arguments always come back to, well, Sony's gobbling up these studios, we gotta get them before Sony does, or otherwise we need our own exclusives. The FTC also had this bizarre hang-up on not just games exclusive to a platform, but within a given game, content exclusive to a platform. So like, if Call of Duty gets a Christmas skin only on Xbox. And here's the thing, guys. Sony literally did this in Call of Duty. There literally were Sony PlayStation exclusive Call of Duty cosmetics. And then the judge just flat out called out the BS of, so your concern is that consumers are going to buy Xbox instead of PlayStation because they can wear a Santa Claus skin. Then the FTC tried to trap Xbox boss Phil Spencer by getting him to swear under oath that he will not make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox. And he swore under oath that he will not make Call of Duty, that there are no plans to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox or to not let it be on PlayStation. So then the FTC moved the goalposts and tried to get him to swear under oath that he won't make other games exclusive to Xbox. And the judge just was fed up at this point and made him not answer it, just moved on. Then the FTC called someone from Google Stadia to testify about cloud gaming. And the testimony was basically that cloud gaming is tiny, it's really hard to get a foothold into the market. And it just helped Microsoft's case. Oh, we found out that the Elder Scrolls 6 is likely still over 5 years away. It's not really a surprise. Starfield is just releasing now, and the same team is going to be working on Elder Scrolls 6. This came about because Microsoft was being pressed on, you know, what platforms are you going to make Elder Scrolls 6 available on? And they're basically like, dude, what platforms are going to exist in the future? I don't know. One thing that probably helped the FTC's case was the big reveal that in 2021, towards the end of the year, it was decided that all future ZeniMax Bethesda titles would be Xbox exclusives. Another thing that kind of went against Microsoft, you can argue, is they claimed that pretty much all the world agreed, apart from the UK, that this deal is fine, pointing to basically all the governments, all the world governments apart from the UK have greenlit this deal. At which point, Canada chimed in. I say this as a Canadian. Canada's regulating agency chimed in and said, actually, we oppose your deal. And Microsoft replied, the deadline to oppose our deal was like a month ago. Try again, Canada. Oh, when they were discussing what other studios Microsoft was thinking of buying up, it was revealed that DayZ 2 is a thing that's in production. This had been speculated but never confirmed. And basically by the end of the hearing, the judge wrapped up by affirming that it seems that the main sticking point about this entire thing revolves around Call of Duty. It's not about cloud gaming, it's not about anything else, it's just about Call of Duty. And Microsoft repeatedly vowed, under oath, that they would continue to make Call of Duty available on PlayStation. Apparently the FTC even brought in an expert, an economist from Harvard, and he couldn't properly articulate how this merger would harm competition, how consumers would be harmed by this. And again, this is just basically the story of this entire court hearing. The judge just getting annoyed that no one can seem to give her a good argument as to why this is bad. Now, just to clarify here, no one is saying that this deal has nothing bad about it. It's just that in a court of law, the burden would be on the FTC side to prove why it is, and they just didn't have good arguments. It's like, when you have those high school debates where, sometimes one side of the debate is really obvious, and the other side is a really difficult position to defend, and the obvious side actually loses because they don't come up with any convincing arguments. They just assume, well, it's a given. It's a given. But the other side actually comes up with a number of robust points and backs them up with facts and data. So all this to say, it seems as though this decision is going to swing in a certain way. But again, we can find out as early as next week. Now on to some general Blizzard news. Over last weekend, Blizzard was hit with a DDoS attack that kept Diablo 4 servers down for hours. I think some people were saying as many as 6 hours without being able to log into the game. During a weekend was particularly bad. A lot of people were looking forward to playing on the weekend. It didn't just affect Diablo 4 though, even World of Warcraft, other Blizzard games were being affected by this. It's not terribly uncommon for Blizzard to get targeted by DDoS attacks. Then we also got this week the reveal of when BlizzCon 2023 tickets will be going on sale. July 8th and July 22nd. Blizzard typically does 2 waves of ticket sales. BlizzCon 2023 is taking place on November 3rd and 4th, and this is after 4 years of no real-life BlizzCon. The last one was in 2019. And they're saying that this year, the goal is to make BlizzCon feel more experiential than ever before. It'll be a one-of-a-kind immersive experience, bringing attendees into the universes of Warcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch, with massive installations. Oh my gosh, I just realized StarCraft is not even talked about anymore. That is sad. With massive installations, art, and thematic spaces where friends can connect. We want you to feel you are entering universes. This is the first time we are building BlizzCon this way. I've been to a few BlizzCons. It's always a really big and exciting show. This sounds like something a little different. I know for Diablo, sometimes we would have the Slaughtered Calf Inn. It was this relatively small area. I mean, small. Large enough to fit a whole lot of people, but given the entirety of the show floor, a relatively small area where they kind of dress it up to look like a medieval inn. It was always one of the coolest places at BlizzCon. I am expecting it to be more stuff like that, where there'll be more props, there'll be more sets, I guess, to feel like you are in one of these universes. Which, frankly, that's going to be really cool. First wave of tickets will go on sale Saturday, July 8th at 10 a.m. PDT. Second wave will be on July 22nd at 10 a.m. PDT, and these sell out pretty much instantly. So for those who don't manage to get tickets, the entirety of the BlizzCon show will be live streamed for free. Then you can choose to buy a virtual ticket that'll give you access to in-game cosmetics, but you can still watch the show without paying a dime. More details on what exactly will come with the virtual ticket will come in the future. And now another big difference that they're doing is the opening show, rather than it be a first come first serve kind of thing like it's always been, which is wow, everyone wants to be on the main stage for the opening ceremony. Huge lineups, huge crowds, people lining up really early to get good seats, and just to be able to get into that room, because oftentimes a lot of people have to end up in other atriums, other spillover areas, and just watch from a monitor what's happening on the main stage. They're actually now going to be doing a random draw system to distribute tickets in advance for a seat to view the opening ceremony in the arena. So I like this and I don't like this. Overall, I like it because it's more fair, I guess. Some people aren't pushy. Some people manage to push their way to the front, push their way through other people. They're just more aggressive people, and they'll, be able to get those really good seats. On the other hand, if someone wants to line up super early, put in that extra effort to get the good seats, they can't do that anymore. By the same token, it means they don't have to do that anymore. No one needs to get there early. But the other thing is, it's really awesome to experience this opening ceremony sitting next to any buddies you might be coming with. I know, especially in the Diablo community, there's like awesome people that have meetups together. You get to meet other community members, and we generally try to sit together. being able to experience the reveal of Diablo 4 sitting next to other people you know, other Diablo fans, other members of the Diablo community, it's an amazing experience. And so if it's going to be random draw, everyone's going to be separated, and it might be a little bit more isolating. I would say, though, again, for the majority of attendees, this is going to be a good thing. The number of people that do meet up with other people is probably rather small, but I imagine as well, probably like WoW Guild people probably, meet up at BlizzCon, and outside of opening ceremony at other panels. After that, it'll be back to first come, first served basis. Now, one thing some fans are complaining about is that ticket prices are more expensive this year than ever. A BlizzCon ticket will cost $300, or a premium Portal Pass package will run you $800. Back in 2019, a ticket cost $230, and the premium pass cost $550. And in the years before that, the general admission ticket was $200. Now, if we were to just account for inflation, we still would be well under the $300 figure. If we're looking at inflation since 2019, current price would take us to about $273. If we're going back to the original 2010 BlizzCon ticket price of $150, inflation would bring it to $209 today. And if you take any of the incremental ticket prices along the way, you end up somewhere between that $200 and $273 figure. Beyond that, you can argue, well, they're making the show bigger than ever, it's going to cost more to produce. Maybe that's how the price is going up, but I can certainly understand why people are feeling that is a hefty ticket price, especially given you gotta buy the ticket, you gotta buy the flight, possibly, or travel. A lot of people are coming from places where they're gonna need to take a plane, and you gotta pay for the hotel. And let me tell you, Anaheim is not cheap. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Tickets still always sell out instantly. I imagine they still will. And until the day comes where they don't sell out instantly, they can keep jacking up those prices, apparently. I know there was some point in the past where BlizzCon was not a revenue driver for Blizzard. It was after this point that we saw ticket prices start to rise for BlizzCon, as well as increased monetization efforts around BlizzCon. So I don't know now if they've reached a point where BlizzCon does generate revenue, or at least is revenue neutral. In the past, it was just a money sink. It was put in the category of advertising revenue. But I turn the question to you folks who would really want to go to a BlizzCon. Is this ticket price expensive enough to stop you from going? And if not, what price would be too expensive for you to go? Where would you draw that line? Sound off in the comments. On to some World of Warcraft news. Hardcore mode, like in Diablo, i.e. once you die, your character is dead forever, is coming to World of Warcraft Classic, with some twists. When you die, you will continue to exist as a ghost. Not so that you can haunt people, I mean, I guess you could, but mostly so that if you're a guild leader, well, you can still communicate with other people to transition guild leadership over, talk to your friends, resolve any logistical issues, since WoW being a very social game, one person, leaves that could cause a lot of headaches for people, especially in guilds. Also, if your character dies on the hardcore realm, you will have the option to move them over to the softcore realm. So you don't actually lose your character forever, you just take the walk of shame. The public test realm for this hardcore classic experience went live this week. Now, speaking of WoW, one Reddit user, Nora the Destroyer, has been tracking WoW player activity using WoW's APIs based on how many Mythic Plus dungeon sessions are being run, and has noticed a marked drop-off that seems to coincide with the release of Diablo 4. In short, it's possible that Diablo 4 is actually cannibalizing World of Warcraft's player base. Now, on one hand, this is to be expected. Diablo 4 is the most MMO Diablo yet. It's the one that WoW players would be most likely to jump into. But on the other hand, I don't think Blizzard intended to grow Diablo 4 at the expense of World of Warcraft. Now, of course, Diablo 4 is new. A lot of people are just jumping into play temporarily. They'll likely go back to World of Warcraft. But I guess we're really going to see as time goes on. Season 1 of Diablo 4 is going to be launching, again, mid to late July. And we'll see how WoW's numbers do over this period. If you're a WoW player, have you stopped playing WoW basically and have just been playing Diablo 4? Did you try Diablo 4 and go back to WoW? Or are you not even interested in Diablo 4 at all? Sound off in the comments. In other news, Baldur's Gate 3 is releasing sooner than expected. August 3rd instead of August 31st, at least on PC. On PS5, the launch is actually being delayed. That's going to be on September 6th. And the reason? They just don't want to have to compete with other major game releases. Starfield's coming out, the expansion for Cyberpunk. These are big RPGs. They don't want players to have to feel like they're making a choice. In other news, Final Fantasy XVI reached 3 million units sold worldwide in just its first 4 days. This is a great number. The game is being very well received by critics, but it is smaller than numbers of previous titles. Final Fantasy XV sold 5 million copies in its first day in 2016. Even the Final Fantasy VII Remake sold 3.5 million copies in its first 3 days. That was 2020. It's not clear why Final Fantasy XVI has sold fewer. Again, it's still being very successful, and it also has the potential to outperform these other titles in the long run. Then in some E3 news, because why don't we keep beating this dead horse? Last week we covered news about how E3 was super cancelled for the foreseeable future, how the next couple of years of E3 appeared to be internally cancelled as well. Well, the ESA, that is the Entertainment Software Association, has come out and said they've made no final decisions about the next couple of E3s. But looking at their financials, we did see that E3 2021 cost the ESA $6 million. And their total spending of that year was $7.3 million, so it definitely was the lion's share. And their revenue that year was only $3.4 million. So yeah, ESA, I'm sure you've made no final decisions. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we spoke about where we are with the Diablo 4 secret cow level. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.